Hey, ça fait bien te voir. And honestly, I'm happy to see you. I'm happy you're doing well. Puis, ça fait longtemps. Puis, I won't lie to you. Je pensais beaucoup à toi ces dernières années. La dernière année avec tout ce qui se passe au gouvernement puis les commissions scolaires. And I had a special thought for you, and
C'est gentil.
I'm glad that you accepted to do this parce que, comme je t'ai dit, le but de ce podcast, l'idée que j'ai eue, c'est euh, d'amener en avant tous les gens qui travaillent en arrière-scène, you know, regardless of the industry, the profession, n'importe quoi là, tu sais. Puis toi, tu es quelqu'un depuis le jour qu'on s'est rencontrés. Évidemment, nous on s'est rencontrés.
C'est longtemps, hein?
Ça fait très longtemps. Yeah. 2000
Guess us younger.
2007, yeah. T'étais parmi un des premiers leaders de la communauté, tu sais, un acteur de la communauté avec qui on s'était rencontrés, comme évidemment commissaire scolaire. And yeah, I mean, t'es quelqu'un qui était pleinement actif puis impliqué dans non seulement la société at large, mais aussi dans le comté, là, tu sais, et par la suite, par extension, parce qu'il y a eu euh, ouais, ils ont amalgamé les deux secteurs. And I gotta say, we had a very happy and great collaboration. On a travaillé ensemble dans plusieurs projets. And I thought you'd be a great person to bring on pour expliquer un petit peu ton parcours et que les gens puissent apprendre un peu plus de ce que faisait, j'imagine, un commissaire scolaire. Puis, d'apprendre un peu, parce que souvent, on ignore ce qui se passe en arrière-scène et l'importance du travail qui est fait par ces gens-là, dont toi-même, et l'apport que vous avez dans la société, puis dans les petits quartiers, puis dans la vie de tout le monde, en fait, you know? So I'm glad that you're here. Puis c'est sûr qu'on le fait à distance parce qu'on s'habitue tous à cette nouvelle réalité. But yeah, how are you dealing with this new reality?
I'm sorry?
How are you dealing with this new reality?
Um, we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot. Me, especially because of my university teaching. Um, my wife and I, we have three daughters, and they control us. At the beginning, we never went out to the Jean Talon market. We never went out anywhere. They did. They went to Metro, to Rona, to Provigo, and we stayed home. And that's all we did. We found it difficult. We walked around, mais pas plus que ça là.
Ouais.
Mais on s'est habitué, puis on a commencé à faire des choses. I go to Provigo, I go to Metro. We both go to the Jean Talon market, always with masks. So to that extent, we've adapted. We've adapted. And the other part is my professional part. I teach a lot. And that teaching is not in the format it was 2 years ago. In fact, 8 months ago. You don't go to the classroom. The classroom comes to you virtually. And like all teachers and professors, I had to learn these technologies, which seemed very complicated at the beginning. Mais là, get used to it.
Yeah. How do you think the students are dealing with this? Parce que, tu sais, moi, c'est sûr je suis d'une autre génération où il fallait vraiment aller à l'école. You know, if I wasn't in class, my mind wasn't there. Donc, moi, des fois, j'essaie de me mettre dans la place des étudiants aujourd'hui, de chez eux, de leur chambre, de leur salon, wherever they are, d'essayer de se concentrer sur un cours à travers un ordi pendant 1 heure or, whatever time it takes. I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
There's a major. Well, let's talk about elementary and high school students. There is a major difference between the kids and the teenagers who go to private schools and those who go to the public school.
Why?
The private schools are really well organized. I mean, you can have 4 or 5 classes per day: mathematics, geography, French, English. You have all that really organized with no days missing. It's not organized in the public sector, and it is very dependent on what the particular teacher you have wants to do. And that is because there was, I don't want to play politics for the fun of playing politics, but when the minister says one day, the summer holidays is starting in April,
Oh yeah.
and you're all on holidays, and 2 weeks after he says, no, get back to, come on.
Yeah.
You have to get a clear message. Going to school is an important act, and you cannot miss school. The form may vary, but you don't say you're all off.
Yeah, take it as a vacation. Yeah.
Voilà, c'est pas possible. Là. He made a huge mistake. He lost all credibility. He tried to modify things afterwards. And that instability you did not see in the private sector. They had schooling. They missed 1 week, the time for the teachers to grasp the new reality of Zooms and Teams. And then everything came back not to normal, but you had your 4 or 5 classes every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day from Monday to Friday with homework in the evening.
Wow. Mais ça, you bring up an interesting point, the difference between the public and private schools. C'est pas pour critiquer la qualité de l'enseignement, mais c'est juste, like you said, when one depends so incredibly from what the government asks, you see automatically the differences, right? I mean, the private schools, because they're managing, so to speak, themselves, they took the measures upon them to act quickly.
George, in British Columbia, in Ontario, everybody goes to the public school system.
Okay.
A very little minority goes to the private school system because the private schools are private. They are not financed by 60%, 70% from the government. They are private. In Quebec, we have a huge, it occupies a huge dimension in mostly in high schools. And that is not, it isn't necessary that it be that way. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of courage to modify the system, to bring it like the system in Ontario and in BC. And in Ontario and BC, no minister said you're on holidays.
Yeah.
They said 1 week for us to tell the teachers how to operate on the new techniques, and then we go back to school.
Yeah.
And what the Ontario government did was to pass out these computers to all students who did not have those computers. Mind you, there were problems. For example, if I am the parent of three, we had 3 children. If our 3 children were in elementary and high school, we would have needed at least 3 computers, which is a lot to ask for a family.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it isn't the fact that it's public or private that makes the discrepancy. Is the political orientation that was given.
Right. But that's an excellent point that you bring with regards to the equipment. Do you think that the private schools were better equipped for this than the public schools?
They were better equipped in terms technologically speaking. They are much more advanced.
Yeah.
They look like the schools in California. In California, it is forbidden to have textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have textbooks. You have a computer, and everything is done on computer. They were much more advanced, technologically speaking. But what was more important was that it's a political will. Where do you want to go? Do you want to continue to have a school in 2020 that's like the school we had in 1980? Or do you want a school that the web has been developed 30 years ago? We cannot act as if that did not exist.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not the only uh, public infrastructure that is behind, that is lagging with
Mhm.
respect to the advancement of technology. The same could be said about the health industry. The same could be said about pretty much every department.
Tout à fait. I'm going for a medical appointment on Friday, and I was asked to send my paper with a fax. A fax. That's in the 1980s.
Who still has a fax machine?
The McGill University
Oh,
Hospital.
goodness, what is that? You can't you just snap a picture of it and email it? Like, wouldn't that make more sense?
I asked that because I can't send a fax from my home. They said no by fax.
I'd like to speak to someone responsible to explain to me the logic behind that. What is it? Do you need? What is it? The paper? I don't understand. If you get it by email, you can still print it. You'll have it. What's the point of the fax? I don't understand.
It's just not not the will to change, the will to adapt.
God, that's the funniest thing ever.
Right. It's general. It's really general. The use of the fax, but only in the health system.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how we touched a little bit about the in the beginning how we met and stuff. We met through my passage in politics, of course. Tu étais le commissaire scolaire d'Envilleray par la suite. Il y a eu il y a eu l'ajout de parc extension. I remember meeting a person at a very early stage when we came in. I think it must have been in 2007, if not probably early 2008. But I'm pretty sure it was within the first year that we came into office. Just someone that came. We sat down, we met you. There was this clear understanding of this profound engagement and a keen interest in public service. A keen interest in the betterment and the development of our school establishment and the education environment at large. And we knew from that point forward that this was going to be an interesting collaboration because we came in with certain ideas of how to work with the local partners. Puis there you were with all these ideas. C'est comme ça ne finissait jamais. It was one project after
where I asked you money to make them become reality.
Yeah, no, but I was thinking about things that we can discuss, and automatically I started thinking about all these projects that we worked on, and c'était quand même impressionnant le travail qui a été accompli là, dans Villeray puis dans Parc Extension, and we're talking about two areas that are really highly populated. Surtout maintenant, là, when you look back now, 12 years later, on voit que ces quartiers-là, c'est parmi les plus populaires. Like, there's a huge influx of population, young professionals, young families. Tu sais, Parc Extension, c'est plus le quartier des immigrants, là, tu sais, comme ça l'a été quand j'ai vécu là-bas. It's a completely different demographic in these two areas. And we knew that this was going to be an interesting collaboration. And for you, I didn't know that you were a teacher initially. I thought that you were just involved as a school commissioner. How does this whole teaching thing start with you? And I don't want to expose the age here, but I mean, how does this all start? How do you get into teaching?
I started teaching when I was doing my PhD at McGill. My first studies was in the field of political science, economics and political science, and my thesis director got a phone call from the director of the political science department of l'UQAM, who needed somebody to give a course. I think it was on political parties, and he was looking for somebody who spoke French, obviously, and who could teach the course. And I started that as the first course that I gave. Uh, and I continued in political science. And about 10 years ago, I got involved in occupational health and safety, very much involved in occupational health and safety. And that developed my interest in industrial relations. So I went to get an MA and a PhD in industrial relations from Laval University, specializing in state intervention in the field of occupational health and safety. And ever since then, I've been doing two things. One, I was working at the CSST, the Occupational Health and Safety Board in Quebec, and I was also teaching a lot, very much, at McGill, Concordia, HEC, Université de Montréal, Université du Québec en Outaouais. I even went to the Université du Québec à Chicoutimi, where I taught industrial relations and occupational health and safety. And I've always loved that. I love teaching, organizing the material in such a way that students can be brought from point A to a point B, developing the concepts, understanding the concepts, recognizing the relationship between the concepts, developing theories, new theories. I've always liked that approach of teaching, of having students develop their analytic ability. It's a real passion. It's a real passion. I spent the whole month of June and July preparing the fall session.
Right. But you went straight to higher education. You never had an interest, for example, in elementary or high school?
I don't have that competence or that patience.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, patience.
But I did, which raises the question, why did I get involved in elementary and high school as a school commissioner?
That's right.
I got involved at the end of the 1980s, the beginning of the 1990s, because of one particular problem. Do you remember what the dropout rate was in 1990?
No.
50%.
Wow.
You had 100 students in secondary 1, 50 of them were in secondary 5. Through the process, in the 5 years, 50%, that is an average. And the average hides differences among the genders. Boys were dropped out much more than women, than girls. And that was incroyable.
Yeah.
Society can't live with that. Our society is rich of its brains. Without the brains, you don't go anywhere. And the way to start developing the brains is not by dropping out. You've got to get your education. I started to work. That was the reason why I got involved in the districts where I've always. A lot of my colleagues as school commissioners across Quebec mostly have elementary schools in their districts. I had a huge number of secondary, Lucien Pagé, Georges Vanier, l'Académie de Roberval, Père Marquette, and Henri Julien, which was a special school for Lucien Pagé. What goes on in the minds of teenagers, how to get them continue their studies, get them involved in their own studies, working with teachers who had a heart, because not all teachers are similar.
Well, especially Lucien Pagé. I mean, that was a pretty special school. I mean, it had its ups and downs, and obviously it's gotten much better with the years. I remember growing up because I grew up in Parkex, and Lucien Pagé was definitely not the school that my parents would have wanted me to go. You know, I didn't go to Pagé, but either way, there was no way in hell that my parents would ever put me there because of the reputation that school had.
Yeah, but it really developed.
Of course.
Look at its performances in mathematics. Look at its performances. It's in physics. In physics, it's just amazing. In dancing, in basketball, it's really it really transformed. So all it takes, not all it takes, what it takes is 5 or 6 adults who decide to transform an organization.
Yeah.
And when they get involved, they do things, they attract students, they attract other teachers, and
Like a snowball effect.
it's a snowball effect. It's a systemic effect, and you've got to start somewhere. You can start, and it grows through time. It
Just
grows through time.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, you mentioned the dropout rate at 50%. I'm guessing that was an average for Quebec. What was it specifically in that area? Do you remember? I'm curious to know.
A bit over 50%. A
Yeah.
bit over, not much, George.
And what was it now? Just
It's about 22%.
And where's the Quebec average at?
Um, well, Quebec is not as good as the other provinces. That having been said, if we consider the private sector and the public sector, we are like the other provinces.
Right.
And we've got to take into account another factor. All across Canada, except in Quebec, the mark for passing is 50%.
Right, and here it's
In
60.
Quebec, it's 60%. We have very high requirements towards higher requirements than the teenagers in the other provinces.
But is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, I look at that and I think that, the standards are a little bit higher and, we push our students to perform a little bit better. Does that at the end have a much bigger impact with our students compared to the rest in Canada?
On the students who one way or another will perform, it has no impact. Where it does have an impact is for students who are on the borderline.
Yeah.
For those students, it does have an impact.
It's a determining factor on whether or not they continue their education or they drop out.
You're 15 years old, you're in secondary fourth year of high school, you've got an average of 56% in arithmetic. You redo the same arithmetic the next year. Mm-hmm. And your friends are going to secondary 5.
Right. So let's go back to that average here in Quebec. What is it if you include, like, in general,
we'd be like the other provinces. But because of our standards and because of the division between the public and the private sector, in the public sector, the dropout rate is higher than in the rest of Canada.
Yeah, I just want to compare the area. You said it's probably in the 20s. I just want to compare that with the national dropout rate. Are we?
It's 18%.
So we're
17-18% in the rest of Canada.
We're close to the national average.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable achievement, though, the fact that the dropout, especially in these areas, went down. I don't know what it is attributed to. Obviously,
it's a combination of a lot of factors. First of all, the whole of society became conscious of the fact that it was not normal. We didn't have the data, and nobody seemed to be preoccupied by what went on in elementary and high schools. We didn't have the data. We didn't have the studies that showed what are the variables that bring students to drop out. The act of dropping out, we understood the following. For you and for me to see a teenager drop out, that is a problem. For the teenager who drops out, that is the solution.
Right.
He drops out because the school, he hasn't well performed in English and in French and in mathematics. The school has been sending him the message that he's no good in French, English, and mathematics, and his colleagues, his friends are getting promoted one year after the other. He does not get promoted a first year, a second year, and even if he's not promoted, he has difficulties. He doesn't have the necessary help he needs. He will drop out from an institution that sends him the image that he's no good.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the necessity of recognizing that all teenagers are not the same. We've got to offer different services to different teenagers. The majority can operate in the same environment, but some need additional help.
Right.
And it took us years to think in those terms and to really invest in the specific help that some students need.
Do you think the education system is failing the students and the families in the sense that, like you said now, a child enters the school and perhaps they're not made out to follow, for example, a curriculum that includes mathematics from secondary 1 all the way to secondary 5. Maybe math is not their thing. Maybe physics or chemistry is not their thing, but perhaps they're more in tune with their artistic side or their entrepreneurial side. And I know that right before we, our period ended. I mean, right before we lost the seat in 2018, we were having discussions about a project that you wanted to bring into the area about alternative schools. And that was the big discussion. And I don't know where that stands now. And I don't know if there's any statistics or any measurable elements that we can use to compare and say, look, the success rate is so much better. We see kids that would have either failed the system or the system would have failed them that are now succeeding.
Your expression is right. The system has failed them. Let's compare the high school in New England and in Ontario to Quebec.
Yeah.
In New England, a child gets into first year of high school. First year and second year of high school, exactly the same, no variation. Starting in secondary 3, 4, and 5, you have in New England, you have a choice between 5 options. Secondary schooling that ends with secondary 5, secondary schooling that leads to university, technical training, professional training, artistic training. You choose one option and you continue with that option.
This is as of Sec 3.
Exactly. Yeah. In Ontario, you have the same format, but in Ontario, the government says that the kids at that age can make a mistake and they might want to change their options. So there is a period where they can change. In Quebec, everybody goes through the same system till secondary 3. And then you don't choose an option, you don't choose a program, you choose a class. Mathematics strong, intermediary, or weak.
Right.
English strong, intermediary, or weak. But you've got to do science and mathematics, which is not the case in Ontario and in New England. We are very requiring vis-a-vis our teenagers. We are very, not surprisingly, Quebec students are among the best in the world in mathematics. We are the ones who have them do, and if there's something difficult, mathematics is abstract. It's very abstract. A trigonometry, algebra, and we consider that all teenagers have the same minds and the same sensitivities, which is not the case.
Right.
And the expression you use, the system is failing them.
So what's happening with the alternative schools? Because I remember the previous government had invested in a pilot project to, I can't remember how many schools they were going to, these alternative schools that they were going to build throughout Quebec. I'm not sure where that stands today, and I don't know if there's any measurable.
In Villeray, there's one elementary school, an alternative in Villeray, and before my mandate ended, I had met about 7 or 8 times parents in Park X who wanted the same thing in Park X.
Right.
But I don't know how it has developed.
How was the enrollment?
You cannot have 200 children. You start by 30, you go up to 80, you go up to 120. They're about 180. In Villeray, they're about 100, let's say 150 today. In Park X, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ever since my mandate has finished.
Yeah. And do you have any feedback on how that progress is going in Villeray?
Yes, it just so happens that this summer, a couple of weeks ago, I met the parent who's the president of the parents committee, and it was going very, very well, very, very well. They're going to go beyond the number of children they expected to have.
Hmm. But on an academic level.
They're meeting all the standards. They're meeting all the problems. The risk in the alternative schools is that, well, most of the elementary teachers do a lot of arts, and they don't do as much mathematics and science as they should.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it difficult for those students when they get in high school. They don't have the concept that they need. But in as much as the teachers and the principal are conscious of that, they do make sure that when they finish the elementary school and the alternative school, all kids have the concepts that they need to go to high school in science.
Yeah, that was my next question, because obviously it's a brand new approach. I'm not sure exactly how the procedure works. I don't know if they look at the kids' strengths and weaknesses and just according to that. But how does everything come back to a level playing field when they enter high school? I mean, how
that has to be the objective. The objective is to educate, to bring someone from one point to another point. The point they may vary in their pedagogical strategies, but they've got to get to this point at 12 years old.
Right. Is it too soon to, like, I doubt the kids that enter that school are at a high school level, right?
No, they're not in second. It hasn't been 6 years yet.
Okay. I guess we'll wait and see. But it's definitely something interesting, because I've been speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs and self-made. I'm not going to say self-made millionaires, but self-made entrepreneurs who have taken it upon themselves to build whatever company. Obviously, a lot of it now stems online. And all these people, they have a different way of thinking that I perhaps do, or certainly my parents did, right? I mean, they're the kind of people that say, look, if my kid doesn't want to go to school in high school, who cares? That's fine. I don't care. Because they look at themselves, they take themselves as an example in how they succeeded by going kind of against the grain, going against that system, and they reached whatever level of success. And I believe that this is something that we should be teaching our kids. There should be more
initiative,
financial literacy courses or entrepreneurship or stuff that are more tangible, stuff that people live through on a daily basis, rather than teaching, physics or calculus that unless you go into a scientific field, you are never, ever going to touch,
That is not the perspective in the whole Western world. That is not the perspective for elementary and high schools. Our culture has developed through centuries. And the main purpose of the elementary and high school is to bring our children to the consciousness that we have in 2020, not to impose on them to be entrepreneurs. They can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the first and foremost objective is to have them become masters of our knowledge as we exist, the universal knowledge we have today.
Mm-hmm. But like you said, I mean, we're still guiding our children based on elements that are probably outdated, right? I mean, I don't think...
No, they're not outdated. What we're doing is focusing everybody in the same scientific mold. Mm-hmm. That is the mistake.
Right.
We've got to vary. We can have a program on economics and finance, but it's a program, not just learning how to manage your budget.
Right.
You've got to get to master the concepts.
Because you see, the interesting thing, and you brought this to my attention back today at Lucien Pagé, where they have that mixed system of work and education, where you get children, I think from the age of 14, I think, and you bring them into a working environment and they gain that experience and it counts. I'm not sure exactly how it works there. And I found that super interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's plagiarizing on the German system.
Mm-hmm.
In Germany, everybody does that. It's not actually Saint-Pagé, it's an exception within the big institution. In Germany, it's the norm. But what that is for certain students who did not want to sit at their desk 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, it was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But not necessarily for all students.
Right.
We should not have one model for everybody. In hospitals, we don't have the same model for all the patients.
Right.
What we do depend. Even all patients who have cancer, they don't have the same treatment. We adapt to the particular situation of the patient.
I'm sure they even have some departments that have gotten rid of the fax machines.
Very probably.
Let's talk a little bit about the school commissions, because it's still very new in the news, and I want to have a little bit your take to see on how this has changed personally your life, your colleagues, and in general how it's going to the impact it's going to have on us as parents and in general as a society. There was the Bill 40 that was suggested, I think, in 2019, and I think it was passed early this year. It was forced, actually. So, what do you? Obviously, you're going to be against the fact that they're abolishing the school commissions, but I still want to ask you. I mean, what do you think of this proposition to abolish the school commissions in general?
It's not the school. Well, the school commissions and other institutions where people express themselves. These institutions have to be promoted in all fields of activity. You've got to multiply the occasions where the citizens get involved in major issues. Not only in small, there's nothing wrong with taking care of Le Parc Jarry. There's nothing wrong in getting involved in that. But citizens should have the opportunity to intervene in other spheres at a higher level. It is not true. Think of what New Brunswick did. They abolished the school commissions 6 years ago, and 2 years later, they recreated that. Why? There is no way by which the provincial Department of Education can have a direct relationship with each of the schools in New Brunswick or in Quebec or elsewhere. It is very significant that it's only in Quebec that we've abolished the school commissioners, the school commissioners and the school commissions. What it does, though, what the abolishment of school commissions, it takes away an opposition to the government. Whenever the government wanted to do something and we thought it was a good thing, we would do it very, very well. But when we did not agree, we would say so. And we could go to the media. We were a political institution that could intervene like that. And when the government went in one way and we thought, no matter who was the political party, we would intervene and suggest new things.
Yeah, for the better interest of the schools and the families and in general, the society that you were serving.
Voila. In addition, I'm a citizen. I want to call some school administrator. I'll call him up at 9:00 on a Monday morning. When is he going to give me a phone call back?
Right.
When parents went through this, I spent every morning, my time was consecrated to answering parents or giving follow-ups to what things that were asked.
Mm-hmm.
And no administrator would refuse to talk to me. Okay? We were a good means of communication between the administrators and what goes on in the school. Let me give you another example. I received complaints from teachers about the food that was given to children by an organization in my riding. The complaint was that they always get the same food, rice with vegetables and sometimes, and then you meet every day. I speak to the principal of another school, ask them, you want to talk to your teachers, how do they perceive the food they're receiving? And they were receiving the food from the same organization. Calls me back, says they don't like it. It's always the same complaint. A third school, the same thing. These administrators who had not been sensitive to the issue were made sensitive because of a complaint I received from some certain parents, certain teachers. We discovered something that we did not like. And had they filled out a memo saying we've got to change this, it would have taken so many months to solve the problem. I made a couple of phone calls. I asked the administrators to get in touch with the parents and the teachers who had formulated the complaint, and the things were settled in 4 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The political actor, the school commissioners are political actors.
Right.
We could intervene and have the administration operate quicker than without our intervention.
So what are the main elements that have changed now following this proposal?
The parents have no means of contact except administrative.
So the structure, how has the structure changed? So there's no more school commissioner. How have they replaced that?
The director general, exactly on the model of what Gaëtan Barrette did in the social services and the health services. The director general, who is approved by the minister, who becomes the means by which the minister sees to it that his objectives are met and the director general will be accompanied by a council of people elected by teachers, school principals.
But this is per school or per region?
No, per school board.
School board, okay.
Per school board. But this entity will not meet every week. It will meet 4 or 5 times during the year, and its agenda will be what the director general wants it to discuss.
Right. But so essentially there's a disconnect between towards the local aspect, because if you're talking about a structure that is concentrated within the school school board. So I mean, let's say, for example, we take the school commission of Montreal. We have hundreds of schools. It's just that one council that will take care of every single school in that territory.
Yes, but in every school there still will be the parents committee.
Okay.
But the parents committee has by what means can it communicate what it wants to headquarters?
Yeah.
Without the well, that has what I'm defining here is what the legislation says for the French school system. That is not the case in the English school system. It's the status quo.
I was going to ask you about that. Why is there a different treatment for the English-speaking communities? Like, how were they able to convince the government to maintain the status quo versus the French communities? And the other question that I kept asking myself is, if the English-speaking communities managed to convince the government that this service was necessary, and by allowing them to keep the status quo, at the same time, they're agreeing that it's necessary, so why would you remove it from the rest of the other French-speaking communities?
The political reasons I leave to the government, but there is a constitutional aspect. The Canadian Constitution protects the education rights of the minorities.
Yeah.
And for the English minority in Quebec, that right means electing school commissioners. And there would have been a huge 10-year court battle if the government had adopted the same policy vis-a-vis the English community. There's a second reason that the government invoked. The reason invoked is that the participation in school elections was higher in the English community than in the French community, which is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
How does the electoral list established? All Quebec citizens are put on the French list. From that French list, you take away the names of the citizens who have children in the English school board, the schools of the English school board.
Mhm.
Okay? And to that small list, you add the list of citizens who call up and say, I don't want to vote on the French list, I want to vote on the English list.
Right.
Ça va? In other words, for example, in my district, I had 43,000 voters. Anthony, the commissioner for the English Montreal, who had the same region as I had 800 voters.
Right.
So if he had 400 people who voted, the rate was 50%.
Yeah, the ratio is skewed.
Voila. If I have 400 people who vote, it's 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the logic of the system. I had published an article suggesting to the Quebec government, do to the French communities what you do with the English communities, i.e., recognize to every citizen the right to vote. But in order to vote, you put two lists. One, the parents, and to those lists, those two lists, you add the names of the citizens who call up to register to be put on the list.
Right.
But and that is done in the United States. That is done in the English community in Quebec.
Right. Yeah. So it would just kind of regulate the voter percentage, because they wouldn't count 43,000 electors when in reality not all of these people turn out to vote, only the ones that register. So the ones that would sign up to register would be probably similar in number to the English.
Voila.
Right.
Well, so but and that is that dimension. Nobody knows about that. No, even the reporters don't know about that.
Right. So
and the constitutional aspect, plus probably some political interests. So the CAQ has now not elected anybody in Montreal, and especially not in English Montreal.
Yeah.
Possibly that they wanted to.
But even economically, I read an article recently that said that this reform is gonna help save, I think it was $40 million in a span of 5 years.
That is a lie.
No, but I mean,
put yourself
like
in the place.
in a budget where the education department receives, what is it now, 11-12 billion dollars, you're saving about $8 million a year. The argument that the government is saying that is that it's $8 million a year that we'll be able to inject back into the system. The problem isn't offering more services to the kids, and we all know that perhaps certain schools are underfunded, or maybe there's services that are necessary. The question here is the accessibility to a service that, like you said, has paid off many times. To have that accessibility to someone that can help you, get through, the red tape, or solve a problem that regular parents sitting in a parents committee don't even know how to even approach.
And they won't save money. You're the principal of a high school. You've got 1,000 students. You have about 180 adults working in the school. You have a new relationship with the Department of Education, and the Department of Education communicates directly with you, which means you have to answer for your acts more often. You have more formulas to fill out. You got more things to look over. What are you going to do? You're going to ask for a new assistant principal.
Mm-hmm.
The money you're supposed to have saved by abolishing the school boards, you're going to put in administrative purposes in each of the elementary and high schools, right, and adult education and the professional training centers.
So what's happening now with all your colleagues, like school commissioners, presidents of school commissions? They're all gone. They don't exist anymore. It's done.
The institution does not exist, and they have no mandate to do anything. I know that there's There's some people who are working on a project of bringing the government to court, arguing that the law is discriminatory on the basis of ethnic origin. For example, it's okay for the English community to elect its school commissioners, but not in the French community.
Mhm.
How that is going to go, I don't know. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money to do that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think the resources are there to follow through with it?
I'm not privy to that information, Brian.
Have you gotten any feedback either from other colleagues or the schools that you used to collaborate with, teachers, principals,
Yes,
regarding the change?
yes. A lot of teachers, for example, ask me. I have no contact in the office of the MNA. How can I proceed to get $500 for this project?
Oh my God.
Teachers who do contact, we met mostly parents. Parents either they call me up or they write to me or they see me with my grandchildren in the park or the metro or the Provigo or the Jean Talon market, asking me who to contact to get something done or that I see as a difference. With my ex-colleagues, I still have informal contacts, but nothing operational. Really, nothing operational.
It's sad to see it, and I'm just I'm looking at really from the perspective of the relationship that read and all the projects that we worked on, and I'm trying as we're having this discussion, I'm trying to think, had you not been there, well, you had there not been a commissioner there, a school commissioner, and to some extent, yeah, you, because you were that energetic person that came to us with all the ideas and all the projects. Had you not been there, how the hell would we have done what we did with all those schools, all those beautiful projects, expansion, renovations, complete rebuild? Um, like how would that have happened? I don't see how.
It would have been a lot more work for your office. And the example I can give is that the new MNA, all the phone calls that I received, his office is receiving them now. And the people in his office are not known by the school education, by the administrators.
Yeah, look, this is the disadvantage when you come in and you're new, right? There's always this, there's always a period where, you need to transition and, to get known to the different actors, but it always helps. For example, I mean, at some point we were new there, right? But the fact that there was one person, you,
Voilà,
that
voilà.
could branch out to all these different organizations and the schools and the different administrations, etc., it obviously was a huge help for us, right? Because we had to address our
One
issues
person.
or anything to one person, right? And we didn't have to wait 5-6 years or whatever to develop relationships with each institution. So obviously, it's like I said, the impact it's going to have locally is obviously huge, but more importantly, it's the ability to remain connected on the ground with what's going on that's going to be difficult.
And that it will be the case. It will be, especially in the riding where there are so many schools. In our riding, George, in our riding, there are 25 schools. There's one school commissioner in Canada who had more than 25 schools in his riding in Toronto. But the second one was me in Park Extension in Villeray. We had 25 schools.
And
the only type of school we did not have is a professional training school, and I was working hard on getting that.
Yeah. And to think that a lot of these schools were overpopulated. Isn't it crazy? I mean, to think just how overpopulated these two districts are and how important that position is. Because and again, one of the last projects that we were working on is to create a brand new school right at the Centre La Jeunesse.
Right.
that was literally one of the last files that we closed, because obviously we left. We're not there anymore. And I'm not sure how that is advancing. I hope
It is advancing. The destruction.
It
Part
went
of it
ahead.
was,
Did it get the funding finally, or did it get
yes,
approved? Okay,
yes,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good. It's sad for the Centre La Jeunesse because unfortunately the plans that we were told about didn't end up happening. So I'm not sure
No,
exactly what's going to happen for that center, because initially the idea was to transfer that center to the old Chinese hospital as such,
that did not happen. The
but no,
city of Montreal
it did
decided to
not
make
happen.
it
Yeah.
a housing project.
So that's going to be a little bit sad, because that center was crucial
Mhm.
to.
They're at Le Patrouille.
But it makes
It's
no
far.
sense. It's
No.
far, and I mean, it had a very strategic location, smack in the middle of Villeray.
Mhm.
That organization,
Exactly.
and we got on board to support them because we thought that that whole organization was going to move entirely into that new space. That's the argument I remember we had made with the borough mayor at that time. Everyone was telling us, yes, this is the plan. We're promising, like all these promises, all these partners that came along just
Yeah.
to move this forward came and said, yes, this is the idea. And then finally they got screwed over. And I feel very bad about that. And I remember I even spoke to the director, of the
Centre
center.
Jeunesse.
Yeah, and I said, I'm so, I'm so sorry this happened. I mean, I don't know how things are going to move forward, but at the same time, I'm happy that the school project is moving along, because that's obviously
Mhm.
necessary. I
We
remember.
need it. We need it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were trailers that were converted into classrooms. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
Not in 2020.
Of course not. Like an entire schoolyard taken over by trailers. It's ridiculous. Um, just
And
so we can,
that means less space for kids to run
of course,
during.
of course. Um, just we're going to close it off, and I appreciate the time that you've given. I just want to go a little back to the collaboration that we had. Like I said before, there was always one idea after another. There was always like some potential at some school to make things better, bigger, more convenient. Whatever the idea was, and there was always something well prepared. There was always a meeting, which we accepted obviously all the time. I mean, we always
You
took,
never said no to me.
because there was always something interesting, right? And of course, I mean, if had we had the money and the ability to get all the funds, we would have done way more. Tell me a little bit, and I know that you're very humble and you're probably not going to be able to answer, but was there a project that you were more proud of that than any other?
$27 million that you got for the making Victor Doré a bigger school. Victor Doré is a school for non-residents of Villeray for highly handicapped children.
Yeah.
And half of the space of Victor Doré is occupied by Saint Justine Hospital. And to make it bigger, because we needed more space for the number. That school was taught for 100 students. There were, at the end, 190 students in that school. We had to make it bigger, and you got the $27 million necessary to do that. I think it was at the mid 1990s.
Yeah. Wow.
That was a huge project.
For sure. Was that wasn't the one that was approved for less, and then we had to battle to get
No, 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 no. That was Saint Gerard.
Saint Gerard.
Yeah.
That was a tricky situation because we had to go against our own government, and I,
A lot of secret phone calls you made.
oh my goodness! And at the end we got it done, and I remember campaigning in 2018 where they criticized us for that, and I thought, guys, we actually went to bat against our own government to get more funds for that school. But that turned out to be a beautiful school as well.
Exactly, a very beautiful school. Just look at the picture of this huge bird on La Jeunesse Street. You see the bird
Yes.
on the window that gives onto on the gym.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Was there a project that you were upset that wasn't accomplished?
Uh, Not necessarily with your office, but again, not necessarily with your office, but the idea that children still didn't eat, children and teenagers did not eat as much as they needed to.
Right.
That we're in 2020, we're in Montreal here,
Yeah.
and children don't eat the fruit, the vegetables, aucun bon sens.
No, I had Pierre Legault on my podcast. I think it was last year from Renaissance,
Mhm.
and he was throwing out numbers that made me fault, from wherever I was. I mean, incredible numbers. Like 30% of the youth across Canada doesn't have 3 meals a day, and it's ridiculous to hear these things. I mean, like you said, we're living in 2020 in Canada. I mean, we're not a third world country here.
No, but true.
And to think that there's kids that spend the whole day in school without a meal. You know what I mean? It's it's troubling. It's troubling to say the least.
Yeah. And that's a project that not specific to Park Extension. It's really general across Canada.
Right. What are you working on now, sir? What are you involved in? What's exciting in your life?
Taking care of my grandchildren.
That must
That is very beautiful, really beautiful. Except that for the last 3 months, I never hugged my grandchildren.
that must have been a killer. It must have been crazy for you.
C'est terrible, c'est terrible. What I'm very much involved in is my teaching. I love teaching. I have formal relationships with my students, but also I'm available outside the class for my students, and I like that a lot.
I wouldn't doubt
I
that
like
for
that a lot.
I wouldn't doubt that for a second, and I'm convinced that they are very lucky to have you as a teacher. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, first of all, to see you again, even though it's through a computer screen. But nevertheless, it was
When
very.
this is all over, George, we'll get together for a coffee.
You took that right out of my mouth, and there's no doubt in my mind that as soon as whatever normal is to be in the future, that will allow us to kind of get back together. For sure, I'd love to have to sit down, grab a coffee, grab lunch, whatever, just to be able to see each other physically, man. I miss your hugs, and I miss that warmth that you always used to that you carry with you. So guaranteed, we're gonna do that.
Au plaisir, George.
Appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.